residents of Lviv are on war footing, anticipating Russia's military operations could spread westward. Our senior international correspondent George Thomas is on the ground there and brings us this report.
It's the sounds and sights of a city that's on a war footing.
We have food, we have medicines, we have all kinds of different things, and we sort them into categories here.
At Lviv's historic art palace, now a massive aid hub, hundreds of volunteers use every inch of this 32,000 square foot structure to store critical supplies that fleeing refugees and military personnel might need in the days ahead.
We are all united, and now everyone is helping, and we're doing everything we can.
In one corner, food. In another, clothes, sleeping bags and blankets. Here, medical supplies and toiletry. And in this spot, sacks of potatoes. Lviv has been a safe zone since Russia's invasion. Tens of thousands of people are pouring in by the day, and residents are stepping up to help.
And now the most awful thing is that we are getting accustomed to them, to all this situation. First days, all these first waves of shock, it's like settling down, and now this is the reality, and this is just the job we must do.
Yet there's a sense of urgency here. You feel it. You see it. On the streets, Ukraine's National Guard is out in force. At sensitive locations like police stations, hospitals and government buildings, security has been beefed up. If the Russians were to move on Lviv, one of their first targets is going to be City Hall, right here in the heart of Lviv. And so already authorities have put up the sandbags and erected these concrete barriers just in case. CBN News filmed as military instructors were teaching civilians how to handle weapons and man checkpoints. Ruslan Shenitsky is playing his part as well, cutting large pieces of metal.
The goal is to erect these steel barriers to stop Russian tanks from advancing on the city.
These are the prepared Molotov cocktails, and they are actually ready for use. And these bottles, they are prepared to be transported because they are covered here.
They have a seal on them.
Yeah.
Taras Masalko does public relations for one of Ukraine's largest breweries.
So basically to fill up the bottles and use them to put gasoline and all the stuff that's needed.
The company has ditched beers for producing petrol bombs to set fire to any invading Russian army.
We need to be prepared, and we need to be sure that we can normally defend our houses and our cities.
Back at the Art Palace, volunteers work around the clock. This is the largest humanitarian center with 8 others scattered around the city.
People are really exhausted. They're coming and they're saying, okay, I can stay for like 5 hours, but they're working for 12 hours.
George Thomas joins us now. George, what's the latest that you can tell us on the nuclear facility?
Yeah, Ephraim, if you thought that things couldn't get any crazier today in this country, the Ukrainian government is now saying officially that Russia is in full control of Ukraine's nuclear facility. By the way, it is the largest nuclear facility in the entire European continent. Overnight, there was intense gunfire and shelling around the nuclear facility. The head of the atomic agency, the IAEA, said a Russian projectile hit one of the administrative buildings. None of the 6 nuclear reactors were in any kind of threat. But again, just a sense of like, this is, can things get any crazier? But today, right now, Russia controls the continent's biggest nuclear facility.
There's also been reporting around Kyiv that it's come under intense bombardment. What are you hearing?
Yeah, you know, you look at the towns, if you look at a map of Kyiv, just go to Google, go to the north, go to the northwest, northeast, and basically cities like Irpin, which I have been to many times. My goodness, it's unrecognizable. High-rise buildings completely decimated, obliterated. The same thing in the northwest, northeast parts of the city. In essence, everywhere that Russia is in control, their forces are in control. You see the bombardment. Similar situation you're seeing from down in the south in Kherson. And right now, all eyes are on Mariupol, the strategic port city that lies to the southeast of the country. An intense bombardment, relentless for the last 2 days. The electricity is cut off. The water supply is out. There's no heat, no internet connection. It's a desperate situation. And I've got deep contacts in Mariupol, and they are taking shelter. They have been for the last 24 hours.
Can imagine. Russia's parliament passed a controversial law that will imprison people for 15 years. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the heavy hand of the Kremlin is coming down on the poor people of Russia. Today, the lower house of the Duma, the equivalent of Congress or Parliament, passes controversial law. Basically, in essence, it says that you can't propagate fake news. And guess what? To them is fake news. For example, they cannot, no Russian person can use the word that Russia has launched a war against Ukraine. The word war can get you in prison for up to 15 years. Also, if any Russian were to publicly say that the country needs to be put under sanctions, that can also land you behind bars as well. There is some rumors that martial law could come to Russia, and there are reports today that Russians are trying to get out of the country either by land, by sea, or by plane.
All right, George, you shared a story on Twitter that more than 300 Russian pastors and other evangelical leaders have signed an open letter calling for an end to the war. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, some of this came from after their counterparts here in Ukraine. Evangelical believers said, listen, to the church in Russia, they said to their brothers and sisters across the border, guys, why are you not saying anything? Why are you silent? Your silence is deafening. It's killing us. And so evangelical leaders in Russia, both pastors as well as key leaders, signed an open letter, in essence, calling on the government, calling on Kremlin to end this, that this was a horrible situation, and that this needs to come to a swift end. We need to pray for those who have put their names to this particular letter. I was talking to a pastor, a Moscow-based pastor, yesterday evening, and I asked him, why did you sign this? He said, when one part of the body, I'm paraphrasing Ephraim, he said, when one part of the body suffers, the entire body suffers. And he says today, the Ukrainian body of Christ is suffering, and I need to stand with them. And so he put his name to this letter.
All right, George Thomas reporting for us from Lviv, Ukraine. Thank you so much, George. Want to remind you and let you know this weekend there will be a prayer event happening with George and a Ukrainian pastor. It's happening Saturday, March 5th at 11 a.m. That is Eastern Standard Time. If you'd like to participate, you do need to sign up. You can do that by going to cbn.com/pray for Ukraine.